Welcome to In the News. Today's topic, Ukraine once again. More news on it. I'm usually the one talking on it for the most, I guess. So, Deshaun, do you want to have any comments on it?
The current situation, Russia. I think Russia has troops amassed at the border, and so do we. But what is
We
it?
don't have any troops there. We have them in Poland.
Yeah, like on the border though, right? There were reports coming out, I believe, saying that the invasion could possibly begin around Wednesday, although that's not been confirmed.
It's not gonna be confirmed until the tanks start rolling. So
yeah, Wednesday is the possible date. Was it Biden's phone call got moved up to today, and Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, had a trip to Israel Monday, and they postponed it out of nowhere. So
not only that, U.S. and I believe German or British intelligence officials have been saying they've been communicating with Russian intelligence officers, and they're saying that that's looking like it's going to be on this coming week around Wednesday.
Yeah. I remember I saw some comment or tweet, and this guy's like, in 30 years, either there's going to be invasion, or in history the CIA will have had some crazy insight into Russia, and avoided a war, or we had some of the most over-exaggerated intel ever.
Actually, honestly, that could be an option. Knowing the CIA, that could be a real option.
CIA trickery.
Although, I don't know, in this case, Russia seems to be their posturing seems to line up with what the, released intel is saying.
Right.
When you have about 100,000, troops on a border, missile systems, artillery, plane, you usually aren't just chilling there to do nothing.
They just got lost, bandit.
Yeah, they just got lost.
That, and also they've essentially put a naval blockade on Ukraine.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, almost the entire freaking Black Sea coast around Ukraine has NOTAMs around it. Of you can't even travel to Ukraine, and the Russians are like, no, it's just a temporary naval exercise. It totally isn't just a blockade.
No, yeah, I think it looks like if Russia were to invade, they would use amphibious assaults down on the.
I mean, they prepared an amphibious landing craft in Crimea. So, I'm assuming that we're not experts, but I'd assume they just go to probably Odessa or something, somewhere around that area, and try and take it with, not directly, but surrounding, yeah.
Right. So, what do you think of basically NATO, or specifically Biden's response? Some people are saying that if Trump had been president, this might not be happening. What do you guys think of that?
I think that's a very stupid comment. Because whenever any natural disaster happens under a president, they always go. The other side always goes, "Oh, but if our person was in office, this would have happened. It would have happened. Maybe they would have handled it better, but it still would have happened."
Probably
one person being in office isn't going to stop all of these natural disasters from happening.
Well, this isn't a natural disaster.
Well, it's not a natural disaster, but
you get my point. The disaster, whatever. It's not going to one person being in office isn't going to stop this from happening.
Right.
I think potentially. I think
handled it better. No.
He might be more aggressive in dealing with them, but I don't think he could have just magically prevented this from happening at all.
I don't know if he'd be that aggressive, because he was pretty isolationist anyway. So he might be like, "Don't do that," but then he'd be like, "Eh."
Yeah,
he might not even care at all.
Yeah, because it is technically Ukraine doesn't have too much I guess it's it's the buffer zone between NATO and Russia, even if NATO doesn't want it, because we never let them in. So yeah, I'd say maybe. We'll give it a maybe. It's kind of hard to say because they're not the president right now, so it's
mm-hmm.
Trump's not the president, so we'll never know.
Right.
Maybe if he gets back in 2024, we'll see what he does about it, if it's still a problem.
Bro, there is no way this war is going to go on until 2024. This thing's going to be Russia's about to steamroll Ukraine.
Right. No, but honestly, I'm pretty much gonna agree here with Dush because Trump alone would not have prevented it, but he probably would have reacted a lot differently than Biden. He definitely would not have gone on TV and said, "Well, I'm not going to evacuate. We're not going to send American troops to get American
Probably.
civilians out."
Bro, that is they gotta.
That was probably the biggest gaffe Biden's had this year.
I mean, are there any who is in Ukraine right now? Like, who is like seeing the news and is like, yes, I will stay in Ukraine.
Right, but it's just an American president going on TV like, "I'm not defend you.
I will not."
Sorry, guys.
He learned his lesson from Afghanistan clearly, but
we're
now,
out. Yeah. Sorry, guys. You know,
gonna announce, I have given a list to the Russian government of all citizens that need to be evacuated.
So, what do you guys think of the possible refugee crisis if Russia were to invade? Do you think the Ukrainians would go into Poland and Romania?
Probably.
Would this make some kind of issue between Russia and NATO themselves?
I don't know. I mean, Ukrainians are. I don't know if Poland would really have too much problem with Ukrainians. They just don't really like, you know.
Is there like a large cultural difference between Ukrainians and Russians? Because like I'm thinking maybe if their cultures are pretty similar, there wouldn't even be a refugee crisis.
I know Poland has a large Ukrainian minority in their country already. If anything, just go into those communities and just make the minority just bigger. But I don't think it'd be like a major cultural shock.
Yeah. The eastern part of Ukraine is kind of similar to Russia. Like, they have more Russian speakers. Not to say they're in a majority. Like, Russia's like, no, they're all Russian speaking there. It's only like, it's less than 50% still in most areas. But, there are Russian speaking, Ukrainians that think they're Russian. Like, want to be Russian.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think it's a larger majority that don't want to be with Russia.
Yeah. No,
especially in the western part of Ukraine.
Yeah, I think that could be a pretty important point for NATO to look at, because Ukraine has been saying that the whole time that if Russia were to invade, that there would be some kind of counterinsurgency and this and that to fight off Russia, even long after.
I mean, yeah.
But the thing about an insurgency is they need a safe haven. Whether it's the Viet Cong using Laos and Cambodia, or whether it's the Taliban using Pakistan, like, they need some kind of safe haven. And if there's going to be a safe haven, it's going to be a NATO country like Poland or Romania. And that
would piss off the Russians.
Go for the safe havens, and that going after the safe havens would mean attacking a NATO country.
That would piss off Russia so much if, like, a Ukrainian counterinsurgency was operating out of Poland. They'd be pissed.
That'd be pretty difficult to, like, do anything about, because, like, Poland's a NATO country, so.
Yeah. Right. The only option they'd have is to, like, probably do espionage or something, and if they were found out, then
that's a big L.
It'd be very awkward for the Russians, and it seems like
if something like that happened, they'd probably like rely on the natural gas threat. Like, I think they supply a lot of stuff to Germany.
They supply like a large portion.
Yeah, so they'd have to like say we're gonna like withdraw supplies or reduce what we're sending on.
Actually, we're showing up now to provide them oil. We're showing up now to provide them natural gas and oil. We're telling in the Middle East, we're like negotiating deals to like provide Europe with more natural gas instead of Russia, and like from our supplies as well. Obviously, we're not going to build a pipeline because we could flex and say like the biggest oil pipeline ever across the entire Atlantic.
I could see Trump making that argument.
No more wall. We will build a pipeline.
No, but that would be the only way I could see NATO getting directly involved, if Russia just really wants to root out these counterinsurgencies and just does something really rash, really just out of the blue, and just basically bites off more than it can chew.
That's not happening. I just know that so far it looks like Russia's going to take, at the very least, just most of eastern Ukraine and then just set up a government in the west.
Yeah. So, Do you think do you think your prediction's gonna be spot on, or you're gonna miss something out?
I honestly will. I'm not a genius, but I'll feel like a genius if my prediction spot on, because I was saying mid to late February a while ago. So now I feel like a genius. I'm not a genius, but I feel like a genius.
Yeah. I know you've been saying mid to late February since what? I think you've been saying it since like December.
Something like that. Yeah, a while.
So
I am a genius.
We gotta see if the casualty counts are as high as you estimated.
I think my casualties are going to be pretty. I don't think the Russians care particularly about civilians. Just look at the theater incident when they gassed their own citizens.
True.
I don't think they care.
What was the casualty you were predicting?
I don't even remember. I mean, I'm thinking at least tens of thousands of civilian deaths, and if not like military deaths, tens of thousands, maybe higher. Could be even higher than civilian deaths, depending on how far Russia wants to go. I mean, they might just start bombing cities and being like, no, they were military targets.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those militias do just have their HQs in cities.
Yeah.
So they just might be like, no, they were operating out of that city. We needed to do it.
Yeah, I know that the U.S. intelligence officials, they said that the first few days would see 50,000 civilian deaths.
That sounds about spot on. I agree with that. Sounds about right. Because it's in modern warfare, there's urbanization even more, so much more than previous, times that we could look to. And it's going to be a modern. If you just look at what happened to us in what was the Fallujah and all that,
Yeah. But
and I think there's going to be a lot more pushback than way back 8 years ago when Russia invaded Crimea, and Ukraine just was like, okay, fine.
Yep. Yeah,
surrender. It looks like the Ukrainian military, unlike the Afghani military, we can't really compare them. I think a lot of people are trying to. I don't think it's really comparable.
Yeah,
it is. They are ready to fight. I think
they are, and it's not the same Ukraine as in 2014 because back then, Russia took land that was probably the only part of Ukraine that was a majority Russian, more than 50%. So more people wanted it to happen than not. So invading the rest of Ukraine, it'd be a lot more convincing the public than it was for invading Crimea. Second of all, it kind of caught Ukraine off guard from what I remember. They weren't really expecting Russia to actually do what they were going to do.
It, yeah.
They didn't. Yeah, they probably didn't expect Russia to actually go through with their plan. Because at the time, it was Ukraine that was talking to maybe join NATO and whatnot.
Also,
so they probably didn't think Russia had the to do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say also Vienna documents. Bruh, no, it is ridiculous. There was a whole agreement with Russia, and they in writing will not violate Ukrainian sovereignty, and they're just like, well, what does that mean exactly? What the fuck?
So, for those who don't know what that is, what is the Vienna documents?
Okay, so a while back under was it Carter? I think it was Carter. He was big on denuclearization. So after the Soviet Union collapsed, or actually no, that would have been
that would have been before it fell.
Yeah, that would have been before. The Vienna documents were in 1990, I think. So
that was right before they collapsed in 91.
I think it was. Let me check. The Vienna documents was updated in 1992. So yeah, around Clinton. So basically, after the Soviet Union collapses, basically all of the Soviet nuclear arsenal was in Ukraine. So all of a sudden, Ukraine became the largest nuclear power in the world, basically. So under the U.S. kind of urging them to do it, they signed an agreement with Russia to hand over all the nuclear weapons in trade for Russia never violating their sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't really go too well. So maybe they should have held on to those nukes.
Or at least one or two.
maybe like one or two. They had the one problem was they had like physical control, but they didn't really have operational control. Like they didn't have launch codes and stuff. But I mean, they had the physical. So they had warheads they could have just taken and repurposed and used. So they had like they could have been considered like in 1990 something. They could have been considered technically the most powerful country in terms of nuclear power.
Yeah. But with both Russia and the U.S. telling them to get rid of it, like
they were like, fine.
Yeah, they that was not a fight they were gonna win.
Yeah, no. If the worst trade, if Trump was gonna say there was a worst trade deal in history, it was that one. The worst trade deal ever.
Right.
Give up all nukes and trade for never violating sovereignty, and then Russia, like 30 years later, 20 years later, is like, what does that? What does sovereignty really mean?
Yeah.
One thing I was going to bring up, I was just looking this up just now to see if it was accurate. Like Ukraine and Russia both aren't members of the ICC, the International Criminal Court.
Yeah.
I was thinking if Russia did actually invade and Ukraine was a member, they might have some claim to jurisdiction there, but they're not a member. So that route is closed to them if something did happen.
Like, has the ICC done much?
Oh yeah, they've
recently
done 45 investigations, 13 indictments. It's mostly in Africa though, because that's where most of the
war crimes happen right now.
Well, it's where most of the war crimes happen, and most of the continent is in the ICC. It's
True.
not the same everywhere else.
Yeah, nobody else wants to sign on to the ICC.
I mean, I don't blame the other countries.
Yeah.
U.S.
We signed it, but then we revoked it. We did some.
We signed it and then we had it out. It's weird. We always like make international organizations and then lead them. We're the one who makes them, and then we're like, nah, we're good. Makes the League of Nations, doesn't join. Makes the ICC, basically one of the founding members of the ICC, let's say, leaves.
Russia did the same. They also signed it and then decided not to ratify.
Just left.
Well, I mean, I understand. Russia does some shady stuff sometimes.
I mean, to be honest, we also kind of do some shady stuff, so it might be. We kind of also possibly do a little bit of that, so.
A little trolling.
Yeah, possibly not in our best interest to join. Basically, wrapping it up, Ukraine looks like it's just screwed. They're done for.
And they know.
Rest in peace, Ukraine. 1991 to 2022.
Bozo.
I was writing up their obituary a couple months ago. It will be released. This was in the news. Remember to like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Check out the Twitter for more videos. And keep watching. In the News out.